Live.
Hello, happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Cape Conscious Media's Edutainment podcast. This week, we are privileged to have Kaspar Paur on our podcast. He is an ocean man. You know, he's the Muizenberg's Aquaman, and he literally has an organization called Oceaneers. Kaspar, welcome to the show.
Thanks, great to be here. Finally.
Yeah, we actually supposed to have the show last week on Tuesday. But we are in South Africa, and we know what happens in South Africa. You know, Eskom se push, no pun intended there. And on the way here, we were told that, unfortunately, you know, there was a bit of load shedding. So it's Sunday, we're happy to be here, and yeah, everything happens in the right time, I suppose.
It's all for the better. I was pretty sick on Tuesday.
Yeah,
wouldn't have been a good interview. So
yes,
it's all meant to be now.
Yes,
with the rain and the storm, you know,
yeah.
A bit of natural energy is supporting us here.
Exactly. So Kaspar, tell us a little bit about yourself first before we go into Oceaneers. Who's Kaspar?
Born in Switzerland, among cows and mountains. Came to South Africa 10 years ago. I did an exchange at UCT. And man, I just fell in love with the country, the people, the nature, oceans. So I decided to stay. And geez, it's been an incredible gift coming here. I came here not knowing anybody. And I think an interesting point about going to a new place where you don't know anybody, it's like your social space is a blank canvas and you fill it with people which at that point in your life nourish you and inspire you. And that's what happened to me. I got involved with TEDx and met so many incredible South Africans. It started my journey regarding food choices, did my first Vipassanas here in South Africa, got inspired ocean conservation, almost like a lot of the topics that are very important in my life right now started because I came to South Africa, got inspired by people here.
South Africa, the place to be. What is it about? What is it about South Africa that's so spiritual or that's so beautiful? Because a lot of people who come here and that stay here, especially, you know, from Europe, they don't go home.
Yes.
And they always, there's a love that they have for Africa and South Africa in particular. What is it about this country? Is it the people? Is it the landscape? Is it the energy? What makes South Africa so special?
Good question. In my case, it's a combination, obviously, of the things above, plus history. Like, I studied international relations and politics. And I remember first seeing the movie Invictus, and it just touched my heart. And like coming here and, wow, there's a person who shaped history in that way and is still alive, you know? And it feels like, in Switzerland, it feels like history stopped about 150 years ago. And ever since, Switzerland is stable and doing a great job at getting richer and richer. And South Africa is different. It feels like history in the making. It could go in any kind of direction it goes. You feel like almost like, wow, I'm part of history. I remember when I was at UCT and the Roads Must Fall movement started, and I felt like, wow, this is an important moment, not just for South Africa, but for the world, as it swept over to the US and all these places. And being there as the Rhodes statue was removed, I still have goosebumps. So it's this, and then seeing the resilience of South Africans. Like, ever since living in Cape Town, I just felt like it was crisis after crisis after crisis. And South Africans just have a way of like getting up again when they get knocked down. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, I just wanted to know about my country, and that's so beautiful. And thank you so much for doing your work here, living your life here, and making a difference here. I think it's fantastic. And all of us from South Africa, all the listeners, we welcome you and we give thanks for who you are and what you are doing. And like you're representing a fantastic organization, Oceaneers. Tell us about your baby.
Yeah, Oceaneers. Where to start?
Maybe the name. Yeah.
Oceaneers.
Yeah.
So coming from Switzerland, there's a famous word called mountaineer, right? Somebody goes into the mountains and explores the mountains. And when we thought about Oceaneers, I thought like, you know, Oceaneer is obviously somebody who ventures into the oceans, but we want to, you know how language matters. We want to create more out of it. We want to say somebody who's an Oceaneer is not just somebody who goes into the oceans or onto the oceans, but somebody who also takes care of them. There's a sense of stewardship involved in that. And that's where the name came from originally. And what we care about is food choices, and not exclusively, but what we think about is the awareness around the ocean health and plastic is high. And there's amazing organizations, especially here in Cape Town, but all over South Africa and all over the world, who are doing great work around the problem of plastic. But when it comes to food choices, a lot of people are not aware how much of an impact food choices have, not only on the oceans, but on every ecosystem in this planet. For example, I mean, I was being told as a child, going around, we had little stickers for WWF to sell, and it was all about like turn off the water, In Switzerland, which never had a water problem, but most people thought, I'm doing my bit for the environment, for saving this planet by turning off the water tap. And when I personally learned about the impact that food choices have and how little attention is given to food choices, even now at the COP27 in Egypt, I was like, what the heck?
I had a post on my Facebook page, and it was talking about the hypocrisy of COP27, because I mean, good that they are coming together and discussing things. Good on them. But at the event where you're talking about, the future of the planet and governments are coming together to make decisions, the first thing I look at is what is their food choice at COP27. And at COP27, it was fish and meats and all this high-end food products that are the reason we're in this situation in the first place.
Yes.
So
I recently spoke to somebody who was there from ProVeg, and she said she almost starved. It was so hard to get a plant-based food there.
At COP27?
Yes. For the delegates, for the participants, almost impossible, And you think like,
what?
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
How can that be?
Yeah.
Like it's this elephant in the room, or we call it the blue whale in the bathtub, right? It's insane that this is not given more attention, given the potential it has. If we, let's say in an imaginary world, we'd all go plant-based tomorrow, like lots of the problems that we're facing right now would be solved with regards to the environment. I mean, the question to you is like, imagine you're going around anywhere in the world and you asked, what's the main driver behind the 6th mass extinction? What's the answer?
I would say it's definitely, it has to do with animal production.
It's your answer though.
Yes.
What if you ask people, just the general public, what would the number one answer be, you think?
They will say emissions.
Emissions, climate change.
Climate change, yeah.
That's the story that we're being told. And the connection, a lot of people think it's a connection, but it's actually habitat loss. And the main driver behind habitat loss is human encroachment, and the main driver behind that is agriculture, and within that, animal agriculture. I tell you, if we stopped eating animals right now, we could rewild massive areas and turn them into national parks, and give nature a way to thrive again, and also give us humans an easier way to experience nature again and realize that we're part of it.
So just give us some more insight with regards to, you with Oceaneers. In the ocean, we get our fish, and I say we get our fish. It's not necessarily me, because I don't, eat fish. I'm plant-based, but I'm talking as a species. We see the ocean as a place where we get our fish. What are we doing to the ocean, through, our fishing, what impact, I don't think people really understand that. You want to give it to us in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Maybe a picture, to paint a real picture that can evoke emotion, to show this is actually what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, the most powerful image is that 40% of what's being taken out of the ocean is being thrown back as bycatch. So that's like, imagine that which industry takes 40% and then, or takes a whole catch, and 40% is, we can't use that. We throw that back in the ocean. It's injured, sometimes dead. These are all living fish. So that's for me the most mind-boggling number that I know. And then a huge amount of what's being taken out is actually being used to then feed other animals which are farmed. Either land-based animals or going to fish farms. So only about 30% of the fish that we are taking out is going to human consumption. And it's like these ecosystems are so important for us, and yet we're wasting it away. And I also want to say, by we, what's important to say is I'm not talking about the subsistence fishermen here in South Africa. I'm also not talking about the spear fisherman who goes out and takes a few. It's industrial fishing and livestock farming that we're really targeting. And unfortunately, that's usually the stuff that you get in the supermarkets.
And then with regards to, the quality of the fish that we're getting through these industrial fishing methods, is it good for us? Because people are under the impression that fish has your omega-3 and 6 fatty acids, that it's high in protein, and that of any of the animal production methods, that is the healthier option. Is that the truth, or can we attempt to debunk? I don't use that term lightly. I just kind of feel when I use the term debunkers to say, I'm not trying to take anything away from you. I'm just saying that the meat industry, they have also because of our cultures and how we grew up, we were also taught that this is what it is. But the science is proving that it's not. So, is eating from the ocean, is it good for us?
Well, first, let me say I'm not a health expert, right? So I can't speak as an expert on this issue. I think a certain amount of fish in moderation can be healthy for certain body types. Same with some dairy products under specific, or meat products under very specific conditions. What's not healthy is the way that we're eating it, the amounts. That's for sure. That's proven, through study after study, that this is not good for us. And with fish, you have the additional problem now that basically all the chemicals that we're putting into nature end up at some point in rivers. Rivers go into the ocean. You have the smallest animals in the ocean kind of eating them, and it goes up the food chain. So the fish we eat, the tuna, they often have very high mercury levels. So everything that goes through the system ends up in those fish. And that's a huge problem when you eat them at the quantity that we do collectively. And vegetables are super healthy. I mean, there's so many athletes nowadays that live on a plant-based diet, right? So that saying you can't be strong, you can't be an Oceaneer, you can't charge big waves like one of our ambassadors if you're plant-based, that's a myth. Yeah, that's completely a myth. Yeah.
I mean, since I've gone plant-based, I've been the healthiest I've ever been. I don't get sick that much, and also I'm strong. I can.
I see you. Right?
Yeah,
every morning on the beach. Yeah,
just the energy levels are up, and you also feel a higher vibration, and that's because when you're eating plants as well, it's a food that's alive.
Yeah.
And that's what we're promoting as well. Like through Oceaneers, I'm sure what we're promoting through this climate activism is we need to stay alive.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our food, a lot of the food that we eat, unfortunately, it's dead. And for me, not being an expert at this topic, I try to get as much alive food into my body as possible.
Yeah. How long have you been plant-based?
I've been plant-based now for probably vegetarian for about 10 years or more. And vegan, I'm going to say about 6 years. But it has been a transition. There have been times where, I wasn't 100% strict, but 95% up. So I don't also, to the vegans, my apologies. If you don't want me to use the term vegan, I won't. That's why sometimes I say plant-based. But yeah, we all go through different transitions. But at the moment, 99%. There's always...
we've been in similar journeys then, time-wise.
Yeah.
I also want to throw in my favorite definition of veganism.
Yes.
Doesn't describe the diet. It's a way of life where you say, I try to cause as little harm as possible and practical to living beings. So, for example, as under that definition, as a vegan, if there's an animal that was killed in a road accident, you could actually eat that because there's no additional suffering happening in that case.
Yes. No, me too. I actually worked for a climate action organization, Climate Actions Now, And if I just look at the impact of the work that I was doing, you know, even now with regards to, I just got a position at Anonymous for the Voiceless, which is an international animal abolitionist organization. And I'm going to be having my first event on Friday coming up now called The Cube of Truth, where we show people about the truth about the dairy industry, about the meat industry, and that includes also the ocean.
Yes.
You know, that's also, I mean, if you look at impact, I think with veganism as well, it's not just your diet. I think it's the impact that you create as well. And then when doing the work, I think that's what conscientizes you. Like sometimes if I feel like I'm going off path a little bit and something starts sneaking into my diet or I'm a little less conscious, I normally go into some form of activism, because with the activism, you're actually doing something. When you're doing something, you're in that vibration, and then things naturally, you know, fall into place. So I think the activism, like what we are doing, I think it's very, very important. And I think, you know, I kind of also feel like sometimes I judge or I'm being judged. But as long as you know what your intention is, and that you're always making steps in the right direction, and that you're actually putting effort into something, going onto platforms like this and speaking about something, I think that is the grace for me.
Yeah, 100%. And also self-compassion. You know, we always tell people, don't try, well, you can try, but don't try to transition from a normal diet to a plant-based within a day. You know, you have a lot of people who try to do that after seeing a movie like Earthlings or something similar. And usually it doesn't work. You need some kind of adjustment. It's almost like too extreme of a step, and then they fall back.
Yes.
And I think you can only ever be as strong for the environment or whatever your cause is as you are strong, as you're feeling strong. So you need to look first and foremost after yourself, you know, and your energy levels, and then you can carry that out into the world. And that's important, I think, also with self-compassion around this issue. You know, if you slip up, or I also eat dairy products every now and then, especially when I feel, you know, when I'm invited or I'm in a social circle where I feel saying yes to one piece creates a bridge, it creates a connection, you know, because sometimes when you say, oh, I don't want it, there's an immediate wall going up. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
I still go through it. Now, because I joined Anonymous for the Voiceless, now I kind of feel like that is like, I'm a little stricter now. But I asked for that. Yeah. And that is a movement that I went into. So now kind of there's a reason. Yeah. Does that make sense? But I do agree, there's been many times where I'm with friends and family and something is offered to me and I'm really actually hungry. And, you know, where I'd have something that had a dairy product in. You know, and it was hard. And when I have it, it's not like it's the easiest thing in the world. I eat it, but what I notice as well when I eat it, it's a very, very weird spiritual experience. It's like I feel the karma. And also, when that did happen, my nose is blocked almost immediately. The next day, I feel it in my stomach. So, you know, it's not like you can do it and get away with it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I think with Oceaneers, really our focus is to inspire reduction, right? Doesn't matter where you are. You know, we have, like when you sign up to become an Oceaneer, there's like 4 categories. You can say I'm a great white, you know, I eat meat every day, all the time. Or you can say I'm a vegetarian otter or an omnivorous otter, a vegetarian manatee, or Iggy, the marine iguana, was actually plant-based. And we have a few great whites in there, and that's actually great. You know, people who eat a lot of meat and say, okay, let me maybe reduce. Let me try meat-free Monday, you know, or let me try to cut out meat and dairy for 1 meal per day, stuff like that. I think collectively that's, for us as Oceaneers, the biggest impact that we can have if we get lots and lots of people to reduce and start that journey and then share it with their friends and say, hey, look, one time per week, why not? And they start their own journey, and usually that leads to the goal, you know, to that actual reduction. So that's really important for us to focus on reduction, because we got a lot of people and we talk about food choice and they say, oh, that's not for me because I still eat meat. And we're going to say, no, then it is for you, you know. There's no judgment here.
There's no exclusion.
Yes, there's no exclusion, there's no judgment. Just, you know, if you want to join, try, you know, make an effort out of it. And we try to make the journey fun for you, you know. Come to other gatherings, you get discounts at local brands, because you know that as well. Usually when you choose the plant-based option, like oat milk, you have to pay an extra 5 or 10 rand. It's like, oh, Jesus, I'm doing something for the environment, for the oceans, and I'm getting charged for it. So that's important for us that we can say, you know, you join this, usually get punished, you go to these local companies, restaurants that support us, and you get a discount, you know.
No, that's fantastic. It's incentive-based. It gives people reason and it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, Tell us about Iggy. Maybe we can, point it out and then... Iggy's looking cute there. Is it a lizard? What is it? Iguana? What is it?
It's a marine iguana.
Okay.
It's a marine iguana. And actually one of them, Iggy, is one that swam over here.
Yes.
We made him from old wetsuits. And we chose him because, interestingly enough, like when we thought about Oceaneers and also our ambassadors, we said we want to have people who are really gnarly, you know, go into the oceans, who are not fitting the usual image that people have of vegans, you know, because that's also an important branding issue for the movement to say, hey, like game changers, you can be strong, you can perform at the top level in the world and be plant-based. And Iggy is he's so badass. I mean, he only lives in the Galapagos Islands.
Okay.
And he looks like Godzilla. I mean, if you've seen Godzilla, like that's a marine iguana basically. And they move through the water like that. But then when you see them, they only ever munch seaweed. They go down to the rocks and just munch the seaweed. And we thought, how perfect is that? And he's been an amazing promoter of Oceaneers ever since. Especially that real life version that we have. Kids love him, so they come up to us and we get to chat to the kids and then to the parents as well. So he was made by Andrea, the business partner who was in it, and she was just creative, took old wetsuits and created Iggy.
Fantastic. I like Iggy because Iggy eats seaweed. Iggy's like the Rasta.
Yes.
Like the Rasta of the ocean, and natural, it's ital, ital is vital. And I think it's good also to have mascot, because mascot is also something that people can identify with, and it has a real life feel, and also it's very good for the kids. Do you think, who's your target audience mainly? Is the target audience everyone? Or do you feel through different elements of Oceaneers you target different people?
In general, I'd say everybody who has a relationship with the ocean is our target audience. And within that, I would say less so people who are already plant-based, right? Because we really want to talk to the people who don't have a connection to that topic yet, or I think food choices, who are not aware what the impact of food choices is. I mean, I see it quite often where we're surfing and as I said, there's plastic floating around, and there's amazing awareness among surfers around plastic. They take the plastic, throw it into the garbage bags and everything, but then they go home and use it.
Yeah.
And are not aware, wow, actually with that, it's not as tangible, that link, but with that, I'm actually trashing the oceans and the planet as well. And so our target audience is really everybody doesn't know about that, so to raise that awareness where there wasn't, and then plant that seed and say, hey, through reduction, I can actually make a difference. That's the beauty of it for me personally, that 3 times a day I get to vote, right? It's like democracy, but on steroids. 3 times a day with my money, I can vote for either industrial livestock farming and industrial fishing, or an alternative for plants, or even one of the local startups here in Cape Town who do amazing things, like Herbie Raw, who does salmon made from carrots, or lots of, there's the ecosystem here, the amount of amazing local brands here is really fascinating. And so we're especially in Muizenberg, we're in the right spot. And that's also the vision that we say, let's fine tune this model. So everybody can sign up to become an Oceaneer. We build a community of Oceaneers. That's we've got about 250 by now in the greater Cape Town area. And we've got about 45 businesses who support that community. And obviously it goes both ways. So we then promote these local businesses within our community and hopefully help them as well, right? So it goes back and forth. But that model is something that you can easily replicate anywhere in the world.
Yes.
All you need is one person who says, I wanna be the community builder. I want to build a movement in my hometown. After the connection, I go to the local businesses, I sign up people, and there it goes,
Fantastic. So it's a scalable model.
Yes.
Do you have any members in other countries that are looking to become maybe city organizers or do events, or are you just in Cape Town and in Muizenberg in particular? What's your roadmap, or what's happening currently in the expansion of Oceaneers?
Yeah, currently there's a few friends. We've got a bit of a Swiss footprint,
Yes.
which is obviously because of my heritage, but there's not much ocean around there. And you don't need an ocean to do that, right? But the target audience is an ocean-based. So what I think is we still need to get it absolutely right. What actually works in the exchange, in the communication, we still need to fine-tune that model. And that's happening here in Muizenberg. It's a lot of trial and error and experimentation. A lot of the events that we're putting up, we're not engaging the community enough, or we're not drawing the people as much as we would like to. Because there's a certain threshold, even if you're at a beach, once you're 15, 20, 30 people, it's kind of a vibe, and you get
Yes.
music and people are interested, who are these people? And that's how you draw that. And we're not always getting that, last Friday or this Friday, we had a bit of a stand, and then we had eco surfboards demo, but we had to do it quick because of the weather. You never know. We wanted to do it over a weekend, but now I had to do it on Friday, and we failed to really mobilize the community. So we're still fine-tuning that, and at the same time we're open to people coming up and saying, I'm in for this. What's my job now is to fundraise, because if people in other cities or countries or coastal towns want to do that, we want to be able to say, here's a salary for you. Go, here's the model out of the box, and that obviously requires cash, And apart from that, it's pretty light on capital needed, because what you need is it's a people's business, right? You need one person who can mobilize, and then maybe some merch, a nice gazebo, whatever, these kind of things. But then it can go, and it can spread fast, as you say, it's scalable.
And myself and Nandel just spoke about this a bit earlier with regards, you were here as well. We spoke about Cape Conscious Media, and we obviously need to go into our funding rounds because we want to scale. And in order to scale, you need equipment and you need to pay salaries. But the most important thing is we are the nucleus. You create a team around you, because in that as well, people have a platform. People are doing something that's not just good for them, but that's good for the community. I think we're in an era now where we're not necessarily, it's not just about money exchange, it's about value exchange. And in value exchange, you receive tenfold. With Monday, 15% goes to SARS at least. It actually ends up to be about 55%. But there's always some form of exchange. It doesn't have life. But when you do something and you're part of something, at the same time, you can market who you are. You market your brand, you make connections, you share resources. So I think, when they join something or you do something good, it's not just that now you're not getting money and you have to volunteer. You're doing something good. It's good for you, it's good for the environment. And also in that as well, you network.
Yeah.
And in the Bible, they make it very clear. I say God makes it very clear. Whatever you give, you receive tenfold. I think we need to get into that spirit of giving. It doesn't always have to be financial. It can be your time, your energy, your expertise. And in doing so, always remember that you will receive.
Yeah.
All that I've received in my life is because of what I've given. And I always get back. It's a very, very weird thing. To you in your running of Oceaneers and how have you been blessed? Or what has it been like? Because when we see founders, we always see it's like, wow, it's such a lot of work and they have to raise money. And you always other founders as well, they feel under pressure. But to you, what do you feel that you receive in doing this good work?
Several things. What you say about that spirit of collaboration, that we're trying to push so hard, also among the brands, because in many ways there is competition, right? And that can become the dominant narrative and the dominant kind of reality that we live in. Or we all have to compete for something, for buyers. And trying to create an environment of collaboration and really putting that out. When we organize events, one event we had like 8 or 9 co-hosts. Just a lot of cool local brands coming together. Some brought food, some had a large following. They brought the marketing to it, and it really became a beautiful event, one of our launch events. and seeing that unfold, and we can be the container for that. That for me is really nourishing and beautiful. And then having the individuals coming up and say, wow, this is such a cool thing, I didn't know about this, or thanks for including me here, or thanks for offering me this, now finally I can do A, B, C, D. That's kind of the bread and butter, right? That's what you live for, I guess, when you want to have an impact, right? Especially with an organization like this, right? It's not a business where we're trying to maximize profits. It's really, can we change people's minds around that, and can we create a sense of gravity which pulls people towards that cause, right? Because a lot of people care about the ocean, but then a lot of people have their daily life, and it can be hard, right? So how can we make this in a way that it's not like, oh shit, now I've got another thing to do, I'm feeling bad because of this, but kind of say, oh, there's a place where I actually can find community, where I get nourished instead of depleted in another way where I'm hearing, I'm not doing enough.
So to the people out there, firstly, Nantel, would you be able to play that video of To Become an Oceaneer? It was up there somewhere with a YouTube playlist. Can you play it for the listeners? Yeah, it is on the site. There we go. Can you put that up for us? And then listeners can see what the process is and also see some of the video. Look at that beard.
Yeah, it's almost like... The one and only, I hope you recognize it.
Look how young I look there, bro. And that was, so our journey goes back. I was part of the video. I didn't remember.
You didn't?
Yeah. So it's cool. Yeah, I was on your little video. Cool.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah. So what's the benefits of becoming an Oceaneer member? What do you take us through one of your Oceaneer new members' journeys? Like, do we attend events? What happens when we become part of the network? How often do you do things? What do you need to do to make a difference? Just give us some info about that.
So basically what we ask you to do is to sign up, and with that comes that pledge, right, of saying I'm gonna try to reduce, I'm gonna do my best to reduce. And we ask you to complete a survey, and we have surveys every few months where we also measure the impact. And what you get is basically access to a community. So you get access to our main WhatsApp group, and then we have several smaller WhatsApp groups, which are, for example, the Muizenberg surfers. They share what's happening with the waves. So you have one with recipes and food, or you have one on activism around the oil, the oil campaign that happened. Then you get access to these discounts. So there's a membership page where you can see these 45 local businesses, for example, Gone Outdoors is one of them, or in Muizenberg there's Hang 10 and Yofi's and lots of others where you get your discounts. And you get access to the events that we're organizing. So some of them are salty gatherings where we go out, or we have events in the evenings. This is one of our Oceaneer. In the back you see Kitty. She became Oceaneer of the Month because for her contributions to the community, she just pulled through for almost every event she did as a volunteer. And then on the left, it's James Taylor. He's one of our ambassadors and a proper waterman. A big wave surfer, kiter, foiler, a bit of everything. And they're all the Molkbos, and Kitty had never seen whales. And a bit into that journey, you see them with dolphins swimming around and the humpback jumping in the back. So that's the reward which you get when you're exceptionally in service of the community. We try to really inspire the Oceaneers to also create their own gatherings or do something on their own, recruit other people, bring them in, and then have a little prize or reward for them. And that's one of them. Yeah.
Super, super cool.
Beautiful day on False Bay, as you know. It's actually not False Bay. This is Melkbos. Melkbos. Okay. It's not always like that out there. I think that was in September.
Is the ocean alive? Like, do you see the ocean as a, is it part of the mother? Like, if you could describe the ocean as a living being, can you do so for us? What do you feel?
I think so. Like, I feel it most myself, like how my energy is different when I'm in the ocean at least one time per day. It makes a huge difference. Or even in the morning, just going out and I don't know, I'm still half asleep, or dreams or thoughts and everything, and you jump into the ocean. It sounds like you come out like newborn for the day.
Like a baptism.
Yes, it does feel like that. Yeah. And also I love like just the taste of salt water and the knowledge that there's a coffee and a breakfast ahead. Like makes me so happy that I can have a coffee soon. So in that way, for me, it definitely is alive. Apart from all the animals that's in there, obviously, in the ecosystems and all these things that we hardly understand, even how these ecosystems are interacting and the animals within it and the plants. For me, it's alive in the sense that it rejuvenates me every time I'm in it. And yeah, you have the dolphins here. I think everybody who lives near the ocean and goes into the ocean, it gives a huge gift to us in our life. And that's why it's important to take care of them, right?
Absolutely.
To make sure they don't not end up as ocean dead zones or like, without the ecosystems. I think they can die, in that sense.
Is global warming a real thing? Tell us what global warming is.
In my understanding, it is a real thing. Yeah, it's global temperatures rising and it's human-made. And I think it's a huge problem, first and foremost for humans. Like the impact it has on the most affected people and areas, the MAPAs, is terrible because they're not the ones causing it. So I believe it's real. It will lead to huge movements of people who have to flee because they can't farm anymore, they can't do their thing, and that's terrible. And I think we should do everything in our power to stop that. And by the way, I mean, by reducing our consumption of animal products, we're not only like preserving the oceans, we're not only keeping those animals from harm, but it's a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. About 15% of greenhouse gas emissions come from animal agriculture. That's as much as all transport together. So we often talk about flying, and flying is really bad per capita. It makes up about 2% of greenhouse gas emissions. But livestock farming is way, way bigger, 15%. So let's do everything to stop that, and let's start with reduction when it comes to animal products.
The sea, for me, is a very important source of nutrition. And I think the sea is going to be a big source of nutrition in the future, but not necessarily, animal products. Me, for example, I like nutraceuticals that come from the ocean. I call them nutraceuticals. It's basically seaweed, Irish sea moss,
yes,
sea plants. If you look at Irish sea moss, for example, it is the highest. It has the highest mineral content.
Yeah.
It's about 94 minerals in Irish sea moss. They call it a super food. So that on its own, I followed a doctor. He's not really a medical doctor, but he's healed many people on record. They actually sued him, the FDA, if I'm not mistaken. But one big US organization, because he claimed to heal major illness, chronic illnesses, lupus, HIV, AIDS, cancers, etc. And he actually put his posts in two of the biggest US papers. One was in New York and one was in Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the New York state attorney, they took him to court and he defended himself. and the judge said he needs to show someone that he healed pre-diagnosis. So first pre-diagnosis or diagnosis, and then afterwards post-diagnosis, or when the person has healed. And they have to show using one of the state's medical doctors. He didn't only do 7 for the 7 diseases that he claimed to cure. He did over 70, and this is on record. And one of the most important foods or medicines that he gave people to heal, number 1 was fasting, which shows that we don't have to eat as much as we are eating, which is a big problem. And then number 2, Irish sea moss, lots of alive food. So it's not just about nutrition; it's also about eating alive food, and the most nutritious alive food coming from the ocean. So I think, being an oceaneer as well, do you think that is something that we can tap into?
For sure. Interestingly enough, we had a brand partner evening gathering that we organized, where we bring the brand partners together. And one of the brand partners, it's called Moss in the Cape. They're creating different products from sea moss, and I, to be honest, hadn't known about sea moss before.
So good.
And then, funny enough, there was the founder of Thank Goodness Foods, who's Scottish, and he said, "Oh, this has been kind of a thing back home, but I haven't come across here in South Africa." And so they started talking and created this whole conversation around these alternative food products, and 100%. There's lots of nutrients from the sea that we can eat in a sustainable way. Lots of it, but not the way we're doing it through large-scale commercial fishing. And also, by the way, not the way we're doing it through fish farming. A lot of people think that's the solution, right? But whenever you put such a high number of animals into such a confined space, and you make it incredibly intensive, you run into problems, right? You need the food, you have runoff, you have diseases, all these problems. Fish farms, they may be part of a future where we eat fish on a very reduced levels, but by far not the silver bullet solution.
I got you loud and clear. Dr. Sibi Nansel? Yeah, Alfredo Bowman. So that's some information about Dr. Sibi. If you guys want to learn more about him, there's a documentary he did on the Rocky Newman show. And all the stats that I mentioned a bit earlier is in there. The O is absolutely legit. In my experience, because I've eaten his foods and it made such a big difference to me personally. He also had 2 very famous followers. One was Lisa Left Eye Lopez
from TLC,
from TLC, and then the other one was Nipsey Hussle that died recently.
I think Nipsey was busy with the documentary. Right?
Yes.
And I think Nick Cannon decided to take over.
Nick Cannon tried to take over, yeah. And it seems like the pharmaceuticals, I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories now, but it seems like they weren't very, very happy, with what they were saying. And you will look over the internet, they try to censor them as much as possible. But if you look at the science behind it, his diet, he tries to alkalize the body. And in alkalizing the body goes into a state of balanced pH level. And his theory is that when the body is in a state of balanced pH level, that you can't really, no disease can form, and everything that is not meant to be there, in a sense, will die off. It's homeostasis, it's balance. And his diet with fasting brings you into those states of homeostasis. So I use other doctor science to back up his science, and I speak very highly of him. He wasn't a medical doctor, but this man, super legit, and his legacy lives on. Yeah, and then also he's the biggest, product that he speaks about is sea moss, which comes from the ocean. So I think the ocean is it's something that we can't, we need to pay more attention to it. There's a lot happening there. Tell us more things about the ocean. What you know about the ocean that people don't normally know? What's so magnificent and mystical? I asked you the spiritual side of things, but what about like some facts that you've learned about the ocean in particular?
Well, what I found one of the most just mind-boggling thoughts when we surf, right? I mean, we often see each other in the back line, and you ride this wave, and it might be, a small wave, a big wave, beautiful shape or not. just imagining that this wave has traveled or might have traveled like hundreds, maybe even thousands of kilometers over the ocean. And it's unique. There will never be this exact wave again, right? Because it's a combination of wind, weather, how long the storm blows. And then as it hits the shores, you get to ride it for a few seconds. And that I find in itself just a really amazing fact, you know.
That's super dope.
Yeah, aren't we lucky? Sometimes, you know, like when I'm surfing, I'm like, oh, I should get more waves or whatever. And then I just say, stop, Kaspar. You know, like, just be present, enjoy this moment. You get to ride a wave, you know. And if it's just one in a session, that's fine, you know. It doesn't have to be, don't become greedy, you know. Because you see other people catching more waves. No, it's not about that, right? I sometimes also need that reminder to myself.
Fantastic. Some more facts about the ocean, which the one that I saw here on the screen is the ocean is home to 94% of all life on Earth. 94%. And at the moment we're going through, I mean, the oceans, we have some dead zones. And a dead zone basically means that there's no life in that area. And that is because of our behavior, especially with agriculture.
Yeah, runoff.
Yeah. Are there any dead zones in particular that you want to talk about that that our listeners should know about? What is a dead zone? What happens there? Just some more information about
I can give you an interesting example from Switzerland, right?
Yes.
So this is not the ocean, but these are lakes. And the general image of Switzerland, it's like pure, right? Best water and everything. Everything's pure. And to the degree there are truths to it. I mean, in the main city in Zurich, you can swim in the lake and you can swim in the river and it's fine. But we have several lakes which would be dead if they weren't fed with oxygen. And the reason for that is, fertilizers. So you have a huge overuse of fertilizers, and then they run off into the ocean, into the lakes, create a lot of algae, and at some point there's not enough oxygen for the fish to breathe. So we artificially, almost put oxygen into lakes because of that problem. And that's small in scale. Around the US, around the big factory farms, you have runoffs, which lots of hormones, antibiotics, fish together. They're like, when you have one of these mega farms, you know, where most of our meat is unfortunately coming from, that's another thing about livestock farming part of it, less about the fishing, but livestock farming is, by definition, you only see the animals who are not factory farmed. You'll never see a factory farmed animal because it never sees the sky. It never comes into human interaction. So that's why a lot of people think, we don't have livestock farming, we don't have industrial agriculture. But that's wrong, right? If you have these massive operations, it's factories. It's not a farm anymore. It's actually a factory. You have all these output from all these animals has to go somewhere, and usually ends up in the rivers and the oceans. And in those dead zones, nothing grows anymore.
Nothing grows. Yeah, I know some stats. It takes about 20 kilograms of grain to produce 1 kilogram of beef. You know, it's just besides everything else. It's
much more.
A lot of water. A lot of land,
yeah,
you know, and that land, in a sense, it also, becomes, not much can happen on it because it's used for animal agriculture.
No, it's a huge waste of resources.
Yes,
to grow food, then to feed animals that we eat, instead of eating that food directly. It's a huge waste of resources that we can't afford anymore on this planet, right? That's why the impact of reducing is so massive, both in the oceans, because then these fish stocks, 75% of fish stocks, according to the UN, are exploited. Some of them overexploited, some of them not commercially viable anymore. If we just gave the ocean room to breathe, many people think it could bounce back quite quickly. And if on the land we would do the same, and as I said, have wild zones again, rewilding, national parks, areas, large areas like the Kruger, where animals can roam freely, but all over the world. They wouldn't only help the animals and climate change because you'd have forests again, but also us humans, I'm worried about that number that soon 2/3 of humans will live in megacities, right? It's very difficult for a child growing up in, let's say, Tokyo nowadays or anywhere to actually build a connection with nature anymore.
So we have a message from Cody. Shout out to brother Cody Murray. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he has a brand called Grower. He's a microgreens man and also doing some amazing work. He has a project currently at the Backyard Cafe where they're just doing a lot of growing of plants and soil rejuvenation, etc. And he messaged and said what would be the first few steps to slow down the overfishing problem. Let's start off with that one, Kaspar.
Yeah, for me, what's powerful about these food choices is that I can start tomorrow to make a difference. So my consumption is always the first step here, because I do vote with my money. It's not just I vote for an industry by marking yes or no, like we vote for our governments, but I actually give money to that industry. So if I buy fish from a supermarket where I don't know where it's coming from, I'm actually saying yes to that industry, yes to overfishing. But not only that, I'm fueling it with my money. So the first step for me is always to say, no, today not, I'll go to the other source, I go to the local fisherman, or I replace it with plants. And then there's obviously a whole lot that needs to happen on a political level to stop the overfishing. And that's complex, right? Because it's international. But the best way to do that, I think, is for me personally to say, I'm not supporting that industry anymore.
No, fantastic. And then the second question also from Cody, what's your thoughts about farming sea moss? This is something that myself and Cody have actually discussed. And it's so weird because when I met you last week, I think in that week we decided we're going to start doing sea moss. We actually decided before, but it's actually something that we really feel that we want to do. Last week, myself and Cody had a meeting and we actually bought a dehydrator as well as a capsulator and capsules. And we want to get sea moss we want to capsulate it, add it as a powder into foods, and then also keep it in its natural form and make gels and whatever else out of that. So that is something that I think we potentially can collaborate on. Reason being because we also discussed funding. We all are organizations and we want to do good. Cape Conscious Media wants to create content and conscientize people, give them information that's going to make change in their lives. We're an organization more than a business, and we also want to register as an NPC. So we're good. We're doing good work. So with regards to the sea moss, do you think organizations like us, we need to also go into product? And would that be something that Oceaneers could potentially do to look at how we can create a product from the ocean and then sell that and use that funding to fund your organization?
100%. And I love that because that's where collaboration, that's the magic of collaboration, right? Like on the one side, there's a skill set to create something like that. And farming sea moss, I don't know about the complexities and everything. That's not my area of expertise, but I think it's absolutely going in the right direction, right? Especially if you have all these benefits that you mentioned to it, right? And then you have the marketing and the community, and that's where we are. So collaborating around that is something that I'd say, yeah, hell yes, let's do it.
So what myself and Cody are going to be doing, as I said, we got the dehydrator. We're actually using that to dehydrate the microgreens, but we are looking at methods of farming the sea moss. I checked some sites online, and there are guys in the Caribbean, and they take rope and they put the rope and they tie it to two different sections, and they basically just roll the sea moss around this rope and they keep it in a specific depth. It's just above the water, so it gets some sun, so it can do the photosynthesis and whatever else. And they harvest and they sell it all around the world. And it's actually, most of their product is bought everywhere around the world. It's actually a very lucrative product. And besides Irish sea moss, we also have sea moss here in South Africa, or moss or seaweed, that's also very, very highly nutritious. Yeah. It doesn't have to have 94 minerals, but if it has 70 minerals, it's still a superfood. Yes. So I definitely think it's something we can look into. And if you want to create a prototype with us, I mean, you have a massive audience, and we're very happy to do something with you as well. Let us first create or go deeper into it, and we'll propose something to you live on the Cape Conscious Media podcast. We're putting putting that out there. We're putting that out there.
Now it's an official commitment.
I always do that on the show. I just throw it out there and see what might happen. But that's how I meet people.
Yeah.
And also, who cares if it doesn't happen? I say it because that's my intention.
Yes.
And generally, like, the whole world has heard it now. It's out there. People are listening. It's like someone's going to hold me accountable. I like that.
That's important. Yes.
I like that. Yeah. So I think we're good. Before we go, I always like to check out, and I check out by you just, saying something to the peeps. Most of our audience as well are not from Muizenberg. Most of our audience are from, from the Cape Flats in particular. And, I always try to bring a wide diversity of guests, because a lot of people haven't actually heard different voices. And, if there's one message you can send out, to the people, what would that be?
Yeah, with regards to Oceaneers, like, join, like, you're welcome. It's not like, when we came across, a lot of people think I have to be something already. I have to be on a reduction journey. I have to be whatever, plant-based, vegetarian already to join. And that's not true. Like, we're here to make the reduction journey fun for you. So join, check us out. And even if you don't, just know the power that you have, that you can make a difference through your food choices every day, 3 times a day, or I don't know how often you eat. If you're fasting, maybe 1 time per day, or intermittent fasting. But that's powerful. That's a way that you don't need any politicians, you don't need any lobbies. That's like one way of making a statement, and at the end of the day saying, okay, maybe I would have liked fish, maybe would have liked meat, but I said no this time. That's something to be proud of.
Kaspar, thank you so much for being on the podcast. You're always welcome to, do a session with us again. Please reach out to us. I'm sure the audience enjoyed this informative session. And what I thought about is that the name of this episode was Kaspar, the Friendly Oceaneer. Yeah. But if you do host a program where maybe once a month or something, then you'll be Kaspar, the Friendly Host.
I always say when I introduce myself to people, it's like Kaspar, like the little friendly ghost.
The Friendly Host.
So it's easy to remember. So when I saw the Friendly Oceaneer, I said like, that resonates.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining our podcast tonight. If you have any questions or would like to reach out to Oceaneers, we will update you on the post that I sent on Facebook. You'll see a link to Oceaneers as well. And we'd love to have you at our future events. Join the movement. Thank you so much and have a lovely night.
Have a good night. Cheers, guys.